The vagrant had only proposed a casual duel, yet the imperial knight was drenched in cold sweat, his armor soaked with perspiration. He knew perfectly well that on my very first day in town, I had defeated a powerful figure, and the very next day I had single-handedly stormed the dungeon, slaughtering a lord-level boss. When I re-entered the dungeon, he had planted numerous mercenaries within his expeditionary force to eliminate me, but I had slain them all using the cover of darkness. Although I was a weak and pathetic vampire just half a month ago, after consuming several lord-level monsters, my strength was now vastly different. After emerging from the dungeon, I informed Lord Bertel of the Bertel mercenaries' plot to kill me. Upon hearing this, he immediately dismissed it as nonsense. Seeing his stubbornness, I simply knocked out the mercenary leader. The leader trembled at the memory of what had transpired in the dungeon, finally confessing that he had wanted to kill me, and that Bertel had ordered him to do so. Bertel, standing nearby, began to panic and told him to stop talking nonsense. Kamal, the Lord, upon hearing this, angrily rebuked his brother, asking how far he intended to go with this nonsense. Bertel explained that the man was currently delirious and his words couldn't be trusted. He then walked up to the leader and warned him to speak properly. At this moment, the leader's eyes turned red, just like mine, and he pushed through the crowd, rushing towards the nearby window. He smashed through the glass and plummeted to the ground. Kamal, who was about to call for medical assistance, stopped abruptly upon seeing the scene below, as the leader landed squarely on a stone statue holding a sword. Now that there was no way to prove anything, Bertel breathed a sigh of relief and even turned around to accuse me of falsely accusing him. I immediately asked him, "Do you swear on your knightly honor that you are innocent?" Bertel hesitated for a moment, then stammered, "Of course." Hearing this, I smiled slightly, drew my long sword, and pointed it at him, saying, "Fighting for honor and truth is a knight's mission. Now I will initiate a duel trial with you." Soon, news of the one family's second young master's impending duel spread throughout the town. Everyone put down their work and rushed to the square to watch. When the opposing sides' positions sharply contradict each other, a duel is used to clarify the truth, allowing the gods to guide the truth and the will of justice to the victor. As the referee announced the start of the battle, Bertel raised his long sword and charged towards me. To this, I simply slowly raised my own long sword, preventing his weapon from advancing any further. Seeing this, Bertel quickly withdrew his sword and leaped into the air. After another sword strike, the result was the same. I couldn't budge him an inch. After realizing how utterly pathetic his true strength was, I sighed. In my past life, she had pinned countless unfounded accusations on me before I had even grown up. I never imagined I'd be hunted down by this trash for over a decade. I tried to step forward and retaliate, but after just a few simple moves, he was struggling to keep up. Finally, with a slight flick of my wrist, I knocked him down, sending his long sword flying. But I didn't end the fight. I made him pick up his weapon. Bertel was undoubtedly one of the best swordsmen in the Earthly One territory, but now he was like a stray dog before me. Even those around who didn't understand swordsmanship could see his defeat was inevitable. I continued to knock his long sword away time and time again, until I felt I'd had enough. I raised my sword high and swung it down, severing his arm. Tamara, seeing this, quickly stepped forward to stop our duel, even though the other party was in the wrong and coveted her lord's position. But he was his own brother. I asked Kamara what was going on. Kamara said, "Bethel has lost his fighting ability and can no longer prove his claims through duels, so I am the winner." Bethel on the ground was extremely unconvinced, saying he could continue fighting. Kamara advised him to stop, that the battle was over, and that he should admit his crimes like the other knights and repent in prison. But he was blinded by rage and ignored Kamara's advice, picking up his long sword again. He charged at me, his mind filled with thoughts of becoming a lord without me. When he reached me, all that awaited him was the cold blade in my hand. But as this blade took his life, it also made my heart tremble slightly. For a moment, I felt as if I had lost control of my body. Was it my armor that caused this? Without thinking further, I said, "You should seize the last chance your brother gave you." The surrounding crowd watched Bethel's head being severed, all showing surprise. Watching my departing figure with a sorrowful expression, Kamara muttered to himself, "What a foolish brother." The next day, Miriam asked me if I didn't feel regretful. I asked him, "Regretful about what?" Miriam said that I had used my vampire abilities to create familiars for the first time, only to discard them after using them for coercion. I replied that the little leader was mentally weak. He couldn't even handle becoming a familiar. Keeping him around would easily expose my vampire identity, so using him as an expendable tool to lure out the duel trial was perfect. More importantly, I wouldn't let anyone who dared to bare their fangs at me get away. Miriam first praised me for being a ruthless vampire, but said that a vampire should command numerous servants. For a vampire, servants are a symbol of power. I said I didn't need trash, because I would have to deal with the trouble they caused after becoming my familiars, unless I encountered someone I liked. I opened the door to the vice president's office and immediately heard Fletcher's surprised voice. They were asking when St. Clement had gone in, saying it was quite a big deal, and that he'd been gone for 2 weeks. They heard the door open, turned around, and saw me. Demore rushed over to congratulate me on my successful dungeon raid, but I pushed him away and went to ask Fletcher what had happened to the Knight Clement. Fletcher said that 2 weeks ago, Knight Clement had joined a raid on a dungeon within Earl Evgro's territory, but he had suddenly disappeared alone. The news that came back was that they had searched the entire Ultimate Monster area without finding a trace. Therefore, they concluded that he was likely trapped in the upper monster area and couldn't return. Hearing this news, I didn't hesitate for a moment, immediately spurring my horse and heading towards Earl Evgro's territory. I soon arrived at the Lord's castle. A man appeared on the 2nd floor of the castle, saying he had long admired my reputation and praised me for being far more impressive than the rumors suggested. I politely bowed and greeted him. "Greetings, Sister Jebinghong." This man was the eldest son of the Evergrow family. After a brief conversation with DBF and Luo, he invited me into the reception room and recounted the events of the dungeon incident. He said that Knight Clement had trespassed into a high-level monster area, a place the Evergrow family hadn't been able to set foot in for over 100 years, as it was inhabited by the Lord of the Labyrinth. Hearing this, I asked in confusion what it was. Someone nearby explained that the Lord of the Labyrinth was the being that controlled the entire labyrinth. Presumably, Clement had been attacked. Blinded by ignorance, they took a risky path, resulting in so much unnecessary trouble for everyone. Jiebing introduced me to their family's territory. Actually, Gates led the expedition alongside Knight Clemencer. Then, Gates said that when he mentioned I defeated Clemencer in a duel, he meant we had something in common. He had also defeated Clemencer in a duel. I asked him if this was important. I stepped forward and said it showed Clemencer was a valuable asset to them. He also asked if I had a very deep friendship with Clemencer, because Clemencer had once told him we were unique and inseparable friends. Not wanting to contradict him, I gritted my teeth and said yes. I said he was very grateful that I came to support my friend. However, the Evgrow family had attempted to overthrow the upper echelons over the past 100 years, but always ended with everyone disappearing. Therefore, they stipulated that searches would cease if someone was missing for more than a month, and they would be treated as dead. This rule applies to Knight Clemencer to this day. He's been missing for 3 weeks. If he can't be found within the next week, then we'll have to declare him dead. Upon hearing this, I hurriedly got up, intending to head to the underground labyrinth. Ice told me not to rush, saying he and Knight Luggis would prepare the expeditionary force within 3 days, and that I should rest first. I glanced back at him, thanked him, and continued towards the door. Just as I was about to step out, Ice mentioned that the Luggis family had recently hired a mage. Bringing that person along would increase our chances of success. After leaving the castle, I arrived at the town market. Million angrily said that the guy named Luggis was incredibly arrogant. They had actually filled his nostrils with water. Actually, after our brief conversation, I noticed several oddities. When Clement and I parted, he said he was there to receive the lateral treatment of Evgrove's foot, and he even invited me to go to Carrot Face with him. The investiture had already been finalized. So why? The trials of conquering dungeons were far more important than anything else. In my eyes, he was not the kind of person who would act rashly out of momentary greed. As an excellent commander, even when he wanted to conquer high-level monsters, he would first assemble a formidable team of equal strength. Just as I was lost in thought, a shout suddenly interrupted my train of thought. Turning around, I saw people on the street shouting that a savior had arrived. Looking up again, I saw an old man walking onto the platform, speaking of the crimson shadow. The blade of the moon shines brightly. The wrathful goddess of victory has descended upon this place, bringing disaster. And now the calamity has begun. Due to multiple landslides near the dungeon, the mountains are suffering mass deaths. Wasn't a powerful knight missing in the dungeon not long ago? Milion asked immediately. Isn't that referring to Climagure? The old man on the platform finally shouted at the top of his lungs. Sprinkle the blood of fresh calves at the door, and remember with the remaining minced meat. Only by doing this will the Lord protect us mortals and save this land. After listening to the old man's speech, I remarked that the atmosphere didn't seem like that of a normal town. Then, a young man dressed similarly to the old man on stage handed out leaflets, saying, God is angry. It's not too late to believe. Looking at the leaflets, I wondered if he meant the mountain beasts had died because of an earthquake near the labyrinth, allowing the wanderers to escape. Thinking this, I told Miriam that we only had 3 days to get to the labyrinth. That was too long. Let's go check it out first. Just then, a person carrying a scepter walked up to me and, as we passed, said, I didn't expect to encounter vampires here. Upon hearing this, my heart skipped a beat. I quickly turned to look at the man and continued. It's rumored that the vampire knights of the Howling Sound sect have almost completely disappeared from this continent. I never expected there would still be one daring to flaunt it in broad daylight. Before I could finish, I was utterly shocked. Without hesitation, I grabbed his neck. Then, taking advantage of the noise outside, I swiftly dragged him into a small alley and made him identify himself. I asked him how he knew I was a vampire, threatening to snap his neck if he didn't answer. The man, gasping for breath, could only stammer that it was blood. Milion, upon hearing this, said he seemed to have heard the name somewhere before. After a moment's thought, Milion suddenly realized something, her mouth agape. She rushed forward and told my assistant, Don't kill him now. This woman is a mage from the Xiayun school. Upon hearing Miriam's words, I quickly released my grip on him, but he seemed somewhat lifeless. When he awoke from his unconsciousness, he berated me for my actions. Yes, I had grabbed him by the neck without a word. How could I possibly ask him anything then? If he hadn't managed to squeeze out 2 doses of blood drink, he probably would have died. Knowing I was in the wrong, I dared not utter a word and could only apologize profusely. Miriam, however, criticized me for speaking in a villainous tone from the start, which would surely cause misunderstandings. After hearing this, the man stopped pursuing my mistake and introduced himself as belonging to the Blood Rain School, which served vampires as their monarch. He was named Sharp Moya and explained that due to their special nature, they could immediately recognize a vampire upon seeing them. He also said it was an honor to meet someone from the dark race like me. Finally, I learned that he was the mage that the Icy Man had mentioned hiring. After briefly understanding the situation, Noah, the sharp-tongued one, said that he had heard from Kelma that I was a very close friend. Hearing this, I secretly resolved to shut him up once I found him. I must shut him up later. Noah then said that he had actually joined the expedition when Kelma disappeared. Hearing this, I immediately perked up and asked him to tell me everything he knew in detail.